yeah?
Yeah, yeah. And we're live. Hey, guys, how's everyone doing? To what extent was the Catholic Church involved in the slave trade? This is a debate between me and Jean-Michel. That's me, Octavio, Jean-Michel, and anyone who wants to participate after the debate, wants to come in and drop a couple of wants to drop an opinion on what we've been talking about. Please feel free. I'm going to send you the link, and I'm gonna put the link on the chat as well. But today we're going to be debating to what extent was the Catholic Church involved in the slave trade. So the way we're going to do it is, I've got 10 minutes. Brother John the show's got 10 minutes, and we're going to offer our introductions. Okay, it doesn't have to be 10 minutes exactly; it can be 10 minutes or less. Um, and uh, and yeah, and then we're going to go ahead and just talk about it. Challenge each other. All right. Me, I know John Michelle pretty well. We are very respectful to each other. We let each other talk. We're not here talking over each other, so there shouldn't be any issues. John Michelle, do you want to lead the way? It's already on the screen, bro. You might as well. John
Yeah.
Michelle, how you doing, bro? How you doing, bro? I'm out here
I'm
just
good.
talking. How you doing?
I'm good, bro. How you doing, bro?
Not too bad, thank you, brother. Not too
Okay.
bad.
Salute, bro. Salute.
Salute, brother.
So, I mean, the thing is, do you want to do the introductions, or do you want to go straight into the
I said go. I said go straight
right?
into the introductions. You give your introduction. I give my introduction, and
And then we
then
go.
we'll just go into open discussion.
Okay. Yeah, my won't be 10 minutes. Basically, all I'm going to be showing is, I mean, there's no question that there definitely is um, involvement, within the transatlantic slave trade from not just the Catholic Church but Christianity in general. And we also know that Islam has a history of being involved in slavery. So what we're going to do is just go into the extent of it. Really, I mean, there's no debate as to whether or not there was one. It's just as to the extent of it. That's the important part. And that's what I'm going to be doing basically this evening is just kind of showing from the inception, from the beginnings of slavery, um, what led to it. Yeah, just give me a second, 1 second. Yeah. So yeah, basically looking at just from in terms of how were they involved, who were the principal characters that were involved in it, and how did they benefit, support, and influence the slave trade. So that's what I'm going to be doing this evening. Is just talking about that. Over to you, bro.
Okay. All right. I've prepared a little intro. I'm just going to read it out for you guys. All right. Slavery did not end because white people are amazing and virtuous people. All right. That's not why slavery ended, people. All right. It's not because white people are amazing and virtuous people. That's not why slavery ended. It ended because of the Christian ideology that taught love your brothers, you love yourself, and pray for those that persecute you. All right. Slavery is a worldwide institution. That's what people need to realize. Slavery is a worldwide institution and it has existed since the beginning of time. I find it disrespectful that the only ideology, aka Christianity, who has fought against slavery from the many papal bulls to the Quakers, is being demonized by disrespectful, ignorant, spoiled, ungrateful, Western, secular influenced ingrates. And I'm not talking about my brother John Michel. John Michel is an intelligent man who understands the difference between objective reality and subjective reality. Unfortunately, that's not how most people are today. All right. Look, I hate to call people by their race, but blacks and unblacks today love to level this accusation against the Catholic Church without any real justification. The reason why the West is the only part of the world that addresses the need to fight against slavery is, to put it simply, because of the Christian moral fabric. If it wasn't for the Christian moral fabric, we would literally be living under the survival of the fittest ideology. Nowhere else in the world is slavery considered a pressing issue aside from historical Christian countries. If you don't believe me, leave the West and immigrate to Muslim countries. Do it now. I want to see it. Of course you won't, because you know better. Deep down in your heart of hearts, you know better. And if you don't, believe me, leave the West and go to North Korea, China, Islamic countries, or Russia, and we'll see how quickly you come back to the West. The only religion, not Islam, because we have more slaves today than we've ever had, and the majority of the slave trade happens in Muslim countries. The only religion that has stopped slavery is Christianity. Okay, I need you to remember only two things for this debate. What is the definition of what a papal bull is, and when did the transatlantic slave trade started and ended? And if my opponent wants to talk about outside of the transatlantic slave trade, my opponent being my brother Jean-Michel, then trust me, I have all the smoke for my bro. The Catholic Church enslaved people. This is what people say. The Catholic Church enslaved people. I hate to call people by their race, but hold on a second. Hold on a second. Sorry, guys. Look, guys. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Just bear with me for a moment, please. I only wrote this today. Okay. What is a papal bull? A papal bull is an official order issued by a person in authority. All right. If you don't know what papal bull is, this is what the Catholic Church issues. All right. They issue whenever they want to issue something official, they issue as a papal bull. Okay. The transatlantic slave trade started in 1526 and ended in 1809. Guys, I need you to remember these dates and what a papal bull is. Please remember, this is very important that you remember these dates, okay? Because I'm going to be talking about the transatlantic slave trade mainly. This is what I'm going to be talking about, all right? So, papal bull Sicut Dudum from Pope Eugene in 1435, January 13. That's 109 years before the transatlantic slave trade, all right? It condemns the enslaving against black natives from the Canary Islands. Here's what it says, and I advise you all to go and read it. All right, just bear with me for a moment, guys. I'm just going to share my screen. I'm going to show you guys what papal bull actually looks like. All right, and I'm just going to give you guys an example of what a papal bull is, so that you guys can go and do this research yourself. And then after that, me and brother Jean-Michel can kind of get into this. This is what papal bull. Jean-Michel, can you see my screen? Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. This is what papal bull looks like, guys. All right. Okay. This was written in 1435. All right. Against the enslaving of black natives from the Canary Islands. All right. This is what it looks like, guys. And this is what it says. Just hold on a second. Some of these people already baptized others. Hold on. They have deprived the natives of the property or turned it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, of course. Or turned it to their own use and have subjected some of the inhabitants. Excuse me. Some of the inhabitants of said islands to perpetual slavery, sold them to other persons, and committed other various illicit and evil deeds against them, because of which very many of those remaining on said islands in condemning such slaveries have remained involved in their former errors, having drawn back their intention to receive baptism, thus offering the majesty of God, putting their souls in danger and causing no little harm to the Christian religion. Therefore, we, to whom it pertains, especially in respect to the aforesaid matters, to rebuke each sinner about his sin and not wishing to pass by dissimulating and desiring, as is expected from the pastoral office we hold, as far as possible to provide salutary with a holy and fatherly concern for the suffering of the inhabitants, beseech the Lord and exhort through the sprinkling of the blood of Jesus shed for their sins, one and all temporal princes, lords, captains, armed men, barons, soldiers, nobles, communities, other and all others of every kind among the Christian faithful of whatever state, grade, or condition that they themselves desist from the aforementioned deeds, cause those subjects to them to desist from them and restrain them rigorously. And no less we do order and command all and each of the faithful of each sex within the space of 15 days of the publication of these letters in the place where they live, that they restore to their earlier liberty all and each person of their sex who were once residents of said Canary Islands and made captives since the time of their capture, and who have been made subject to slavery. These people are to be totally and perpetually free, and not to be let go without the exaction of reception of money. If this is not done when the 15 days have passed, they incur the sentence of excommunication by the act itself, from which they cannot be absolved, except at the point of death, even by the Holy See or by any Spanish bishop or by the aforementioned Ferdinand, unless they have first given freedom to these captive persons and restored their good. All right, listen, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna make this clear. Right, I'm gonna make this clear. This was written. This was written in 1435. All right, and there's loads of these paper balls. Okay, I've got them more. I've got them more here. There's loads of these paper balls all throughout the period of the slave trade. Just give me a second, guys. And shout out to everyone watching. Shout out to you guys. Okay. All right. So remember what I said. The transatlantic slave trade started in 1526 and ended in 1809. Okay. Remember I said that. All right. And I also said I want you to remember the dates of. I want you to remember these dates and what a paper ball is. All right. So paper ball. After that, we have the paper ball that was written in 1537, 7th of June, and it's called Sublimis Dei. All right. This is right after the transatlantic slave trade started. Okay. And it basically, without me reading everything, because I've got everything here, guys. All right. And you guys can go and research it yourself. It forbids the enslavement of indigenous people of Americas and all other indigenous people that could be discovered later or previously known. Condemned anyone who uses the faith as an excuse to preach the Catholic faith. All right. Um, and again, like I said, instead of me reading every paper ball, I'm going to just reference them, and hopefully um, you guys can go and actually do some research, which I know a lot of you guys are allergic to. So you just you'd rather blame the Catholic Church because it's easier to hate. All right, and then we've got in 1591. All right, this is Pope Gregory XIV. And this decree, it was actually a decree called Cum Sicuti, 18th of April, 1591. The Pope threatens excommunication and demands reparations. Guys, please go and do this research. Again, in 1639, just look, this is every century. There's like two paper bulls in every century. Okay, this paper bull is called the Commissum Novus by Urban 13 in 1639, ruling of the Inquisition against slavery. Then there's the 1741 by Benedict XIV called Immensa Pastorum on the 22nd of December, 1741. Okay, and again, this was sent. And this was sent as an apostolic brief to the Bishop of Brazil and King John V of Portugal against the enslavement of the indigenous people of the Americas and other countries. Okay, so even though slavery was abolished in 1808, the Catholic Church has continued to condemn the slave trade. All right, 1839. Gregory 14th in Supremo Apostolatus. That's the name of the what do you call it, of the papal bull. 1890. This is Leo 13, Catholic Ecclesiae. 1963, John 23, Passementeries. These are all popes condemning slavery, guys. Okay, and it's much more. So please go and read it. Not to mention the fact that Protestants in America, like the Quakers, led the fight to end slavery in America. All right. And fun fact for you guys, right? And you can Google this. All right. Pope Pius I, and this is in 144, 155 AD, and Pope Calixtus in 218, 223 AD. All right, this is very close to when Jesus was born. These popes were slaves. Okay, this is how early Christians were fighting against slavery. All right. Um, uh, just to let you guys also know, all right, because I'm sure you guys probably don't know because you choose not to look at these things. At least 80,000 Southern Sudanese today are sold into um, slavery every year. And I'll be honest with you guys, I don't see a single black movement on the West trying to address it aside from Christians. This is going on through all the Muslim lands. Guys, where is the outrage? Okay, I find it insulting and extremely disrespectful for modern Western men to spit on all the work the Catholic Church has done since the beginning of Christianity to end slavery. Okay, every century the Catholic Church has literally condemned slavery and fought against slavery, and people still turn around and blame the Catholic Church for the slavery that we see around the world. Anyways, I think whether made it to 10 minutes or not. Yeah, guys, this is my intro. Hopefully, I didn't go over. But yeah, this is it. Yeah, go ahead. I'll pass it over to Jean-Michel.
Again, I think you have to remove that. Let's have a look.
Yeah, we've done it. We've done it.
Oh, it's not coming up.
Do you want me to put it on the thing? Yeah.
There you go. Nice one. Right. So what I'm going to do is show a slightly different recollection of history that Nelson. Most of what Nelson said, I don't disagree with. There's clearly evidence to show that there was some pushback from the Catholic Church with regards to what was happening with regards to the transatlantic slave trade. But to deny their involvement would be it wouldn't be factual. So what we're going to do now is show you their involvement, and then we could look at the extent of it, as I said before, with regards to how much were they involved in the slave trade. So what I want to do first of all is just to refresh our mind with regards to what the actual transatlantic slave trade was. So we're looking at the timestamps approximately between 1526 to 1867. Okay, that's what kind of the approximate time frame for slavery. The method involved, slaves, traders set out from European ports towards the Africa's west coast. They brought people, namely Africans, in exchange for goods and loaded them into the ships. The voyage across the Atlantic, known as the Middle Passages, generally took 6 to 8 weeks. The legacy of slavery, we can go, there's books written about this, we can really go into this. But clearly, the transatlantic slave trade enriched nations and industries from early European colonists to priests to popes, shipbuilders to rum and textile producers, bankers to insurers, and generated the capital used to build some of Europe's and America's greatest cities and most successful companies. So just a bit of a background just to refresh people's mind about what the slave trade was about and the legacy of it. So Nelson spoke about papal bulls, edicts from some of the popes around at that time. So I have some papal bulls to share also. First of all, I just want to start to talk about some of the early Christian writings. This is specifically directed towards Catholics, But let's look at some of the. I mean, Saint Augustine is revered by Catholics as being one of the early Christian scholar. Now he said, just reading aloud some of the things that he said about slavery. He said that slavery is the result of sin, which linked people by dependence, and which does not come from nature because it was not God's will. So he's acknowledging that slavery is not the will of God. However, he says that if you find yourself as a slave, it's because of sin. Important to understand that. At the same time, St. Augustine admonishes slaves to obey their masters and to serve them faithfully so that they can be freed. Though they can make their slavery to some point freed, that can be done by showing great loyalty and love until the slavery ends. So St. Augustine also argued that Christian emperors could not ease the trace of the sin of humanity because it would require exposure to social order, and hence slavery could not disappear. So here we have one of the earliest Christian scholars revered by Catholics, basically saying that all those poor Africans that were kidnapped and brought over here, that was because they were sinful. So there you're seeing at the very early stages a justification for the enslavement of human beings, and then using Christian doctrine to justify it. So this is when the early
sorry, bro. Sorry, bro. Don't mean to interrupt. This is like part of your 10 minutes figure, right?
Okay, so just let me know because
Okay.
I could stop
All
and
right.
then
Okay.
continue.
Yeah, because I wanted to know when you want, if you want me to challenge it or not challenge it. That's all.
Okay, so let me go up to 23, 11, 40,
Okay.
42,
Cool.
and then
No problem.
we can
No
continue
problem.
from there. I might be finished by then because not much.
All right.
So basically, the doctrines of discovery. These are in the 15th century, there were a series of decrees known as papal bulls, which Nelson mentioned earlier, which authorized colonial powers to seize lands and enslave indigenous people in the New World and Africa, as long as they were not Christians. While the Vatican attempted to withdraw the order 40 years later. Now that's very important because I always say if you're in the process of apologizing, that means you're admitting to doing something wrong. So for the Vatican to come out and say 40 years after we need to withdraw some of these papal bulls literally does expose them as being complicit in sharing information which was then used or justified the enslavement of non-Christian people, namely Africans in this case. The decrees became foundational to European and US property law and allowed white colonizers to destroy indigenous lives, wealth, and sovereignty throughout history. So let's look at one of these first papal bulls that did this. First of all, let's look at the author. So here we have Pope Nicholas V, who was head of the Catholic Church and ruler of the Papal States from 6th of March, 1447. Now, he issued a papal bull in 1452 called Dum Diversis. Okay, now within this papal bull, it authorized the then King of Spain, Alfonso, of Portugal, to reduce any so-called Saracens who were Muslims and pagans and any other unbelievers to perpetual, what's that word? Slavery. This facilitated the Portuguese slave trade from West Africa. The same Pope wrote the bull, the following papal bull, on January the 5th, 1455, to the same Alfonso as a follow-up to the Dum Diversis. It extended to the Catholic nations of Europe dominion and discovered lands during the Age of Discovery. Along with sanctifying the seizure of non-Christian lands, it encouraged the enslavement of native non-Christian peoples in Africa and in the New World. Moving on. We have the Pope that came after him, Pope Alexander VI, the head of the Catholic Church and ruler of the Papal Estates from the 11th of August, 1492. What did he issue a papal bull? Let's read to say. So he issued a papal bull called the Inter Castera. Okay, now within that, this was played a central role in the Spanish conquest of the New World, namely Africa and some of the other developing nations. The document supported Spain's strategy to ensure its exclusive rights to the lands discovered by Columbus the previous year. It established a demarcation line 100 leagues west of the Azores and Cape Verde Islands, and assigned Spain the exclusive right to acquire territorial possession and to trade in all lands west of that line. All others were forbidden to approach the lands west of the line without special license from the rulers of Spain, thus effectively giving Spain a monopoly on the lands in the New World. The bull stated that any land not inhabited by Christians was available to be, quote, discovered, claimed, and exploited by Christian rulers, and declared that the Catholic Church and the Christian religion be exalted and be everywhere, increase and spread, that the health of souls be cared for, and that the barbarous nations be overthrown. Again, this type of language, this type of thinking was essential into the mind states of the people that then took over these lands and enslaved the people there. If you have the backing of the Pope to go in and basically do what you want in the name of Christianity, clearly you have no regard for the human beings there. So enslaving them would be seen as almost righteous at some level, because it's coming from an edict from the Pope. And that's important to bear in mind, that some of these people that were engaged in this type of behavior literally believed they were doing it on order of God via the Pope. So moving on now, a couple of hundred years, we're talking about the Catholic Church in America, because obviously we can't talk about the transatlantic slave trade without talking about America's role, because obviously America was central in enslaving Africans on their own land, installing plantations, and having these Africans working on their lands for almost 400 years. So we can't have the discussion without talking about the Americas. So in 1838, a group of Americans, prominently Catholic priests, sold 272 enslaved people to save their largest mission project, which is now Georgetown University. As you can see, there's been a book written about this, and it tells a story about how about a family who were actually sold by the so-called Jesuits, who also are a Catholic religious order, which then helped to not only develop the Georgetown University, but there was numerous properties and businesses run by the Jesuits, lands that had slaves, and they used slaves within their properties and even in their homes. And we're talking about, again, not just any group of Catholics, we're talking about Jesuits, who were seen as very prominent, high-ranking Catholics. This interesting. I found this very interesting, because I was always under the impression that, I mean, first of all, it's important to note that in America at that time, Protestants were the number one religious group in America. It wasn't the Catholics, it was Protestants. However, Catholics owned more slaves than Protestants did. Not because slavery was more attractive to them as members of this Roman Catholic faith, but because they tended to be the colony's wealthiest residents. So again, we're seeing a specific role that the Catholic Church and its adherents and its leadership had in owning, controlling, selling, and working slaves. Now, there's a bit of a word salad here. I'm not going to go read all of it, but it's important to just understand a couple of points here. The American Catholic Church was at the heart of Georgetown's reliance on enslaved labor. Just that sentence alone speaks volumes. The priest, further down, second paragraph, the priests who founded Georgetown and the corporation were also individual owners of properties, which in many cases included enslaved people. So again, we're seeing the Catholic Church in America, the leadership being directly involved in slavery. There's no talk of them trying to, at any point during this time, end slavery, condemn slavery. They literally were, not only were they supporting slaves, they were selling slaves, selling and trading human beings. This is what the American Catholic Church were doing. Where was the condemnation from the Vatican? Let's move on. This is important. The 5 major countries that dominated slavery and the slave trade in the New World were either Catholic or still retained strong Catholic influences, including Spain, Portugal, France, England, and the Netherlands. Moving on quickly. Actually, what I'll do, I'll stop there, Nelson, because that's kind of going into my conclusion. So I'll stop there. It's 42 minutes past anyway, so we're right on time with that.
All right. Okay. I made a few notes as you were talking. Can I take that off the screen? Is that okay?
Yeah, we could hit it off. We'll bring it back on in the end.
All right. Okay. All right. You mentioned Saint Augustine and slavery, right? Can you read that quote for me one more time, please, bro?
You have to bring it up.
Okay. All right.
So going back to go back to St. Augustine. Okay.
Yeah. Saint Augustine. Sorry.
Okay.
What did he say? So I can't.
What I actually can do, actually, I could go in a bit more deeper on this because I actually got I don't know if this will work, but I have a bit more on St. Augustine. Actually, just a little bit more. I've got to just go into a bit more depth about what he actually did say.
Yeah, because what I want is the actual quote, because I tried to type in what you actually said, and you mentioned.
I've got it. I've got it here.
Augustine,
I've got it.
Okay, what does he say? What was the actual quote?
Let me try and find it now, because I actually got the Okay, can you see that? Can you see that?
You've got here early Christian writings.
Nelson?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Can you see that?
I can see what's on the screen.
No. The I just put up another screen.
Oh, hold on.
The text, the big text.
No, I can't see that. Let me remove this one and you share it again.
Okay.
Try and share it again.
Okay, let me no, I'm not sharing it. Okay, let me how do I share it?
Our shouts to American Catholicism is based on what, bro? Shouts to you, bro. Shouts to you.
Okay, I know how to do it. Let's go to that. Oh no, that's not it. Yeah, if you take that off.
What do you want me to take off?
Okay. Oh, yeah, I got it. Okay, from here. Slides. Okay. Your computer. Upload file. Okay. Documents. Down. Documents. Yeah, because I've got the actual full quote.
No worries, no worries.
So what he said. Let me find it here.
Yeah, I was typing for that quote, and I found something that says the prime cause of slavery then is sin, so that man was put under man in a state of bondage, and this can only be a judgment of God, in whom there is no unrighteousness, and who knows how to assign diverse punishments.
Okay, I'm gonna have to read it. I think I'm gonna have to read it. I mean, I can send this to you. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to see it because it's not okay. So basically, it's a screenshot of actual a bit more information about what St. Augustine said.
Yeah. What did he actually say? That's what I want to know. What's the actual quote?
So this is what he said.
Shouts to everyone watching. I hope you're
Okay,
enjoying
this
the
is what he
debate
said.
so far.
Okay, so St. Augustine reflects the society of this day in considering slaves as a form of wealth. Okay, so he's reflecting on considering slaves as a form of wealth. He points out, for instance, that man loves what he thinks makes him happy, and such things he includes under the general heading pecunia. For instance, these are his words. For instance, a slave, a tree, a vase, a field, or a herd.
So these are the
Wherever
things
there
that
is
make men happy.
itemizing of wealth, slaves invariably, yeah, constitute an element. Now they are classified within Phrynidium oleum, and there's a couple of words here I can't repronounce. But he goes on to talk about uh, what he did say, which is interesting, is that um, he admonishes that Christians that he should not possess a slave the same way as a horse or money. True, the horse may have greater monetary value than the slave. In fact, even an object of gold or silver may exceed him in value from this standpoint. So he's literally saying that a human being is worth less than money. But there is another standard of value to which the Christian must have reference. Therefore, if the slave is being ruled and educated at present in a way more upright and more conducive to the honor of God, then he can be by that persons who wishes to take him away. Then so Augustine inclines to the belief that the slave should be regarded as a person, not as a plane on a plane with the other pieces of property. So there again, no condemnation of slavery, literally justifying it by saying, even though that is not worth the level of a piece of jewelry, um, having the slave is not particularly bad. If you treat him better than a horse, you're kind of okay. Now, these are
Um, I,
early
I,
writings. These,
I
yeah,
didn't
go ahead.
get that. I didn't get that from what you said. And
What did
I
you
need
get then?
I need the actual quote. It looks like someone is explaining what he said rather than what he actually said. Now, if he's reflecting the time of his day and how slaves were treated at that time. You see, a lot of people today, because of Job Center and because of all the help that they get from the government, they think that the world was always a nice place. This is not the case. Okay, slavery, there's several types of slavery. Okay, there's chattel slavery, there's indentured servitude, and so on. And this has always existed all throughout human history. Okay, this is a fact. Okay, that's why we have more slaves today, all right, and less condemnation today. Now, I need if he's talking about in terms of how slaves are viewed in the society that he's currently in, that is very different from his own personal opinion of of who slaves are and how slaves should be treated, because the Bible is very clear on that no one is everyone is one under Christ. There is no such thing as slave, Jew, Greek. It doesn't matter who you are. Everyone is one under Christ. So the Bible is very clear in terms of that.
No,
So I need to get his
that's not
exact
his view.
quote.
That's not his view, Nelson. That's not his view.
Yeah,
And
what is the
I'm
exact
gonna
quote?
remind you. I'm gonna
Mm,
remind you what his view is with regards to slavery. Okay, and
mhm,
all we have to do is go to his work, De Civiti Dei. Okay, this is
mhm.
his work written in 354 to 430 CE. He
And what
asserts
does he
in that
say?
book,
Mm,
slavery is the result of sin,
yes.
which linked people
Which
by dependence and which does not come from nature because it was not God's will. So he's literally saying that if
yes.
you find yourself as a slave, unfortunately, If you find yourself as a slave, if that is a result of sin, where is that in the
That is not
Bible?
what.
First of all,
Yeah, yeah. That is not
okay,
okay.
that's a
That's
good
just
point.
answer that. Just answer that question.
Okay, where's
That
that
is
in the
not.
Bible?
Yeah, that just answer that question. That is not what he's saying. When he says slavery is a result of sin, what he's basically saying is slave is sinful, and it's as a result of the fall of Adam and Eve. Because after Adam and Eve, we have all become fallen. So slavery is a sin, and slavery
No, that's not what
is
he
the
meant.
result of sin. Slavery, for example, slavery is sinful. Slavery is a result
No,
of sin. That's what he's actually
that's not
saying.
what he meant. That's not what he meant. Because if that was the case, why is he making a specific statement about owning slaves and treating them better than horses? So he's not obviously not referring to all peoples. He's being specific about the people that find themselves in the position of being a slave, not all human beings. He's not referencing all human beings here. He's talking about those who find themselves in the position of being enslaved, such as the black Africans were. They found themselves in a position to being enslaved. According to him, that was a result of them being sinful. It's because of their sin. And let's be honest, Nelson, this kind of falls into some of the other stuff I was highlighting, where this whole idea that it was okay for Christian nations to go to what they call quote unquote barbarous lands or barbarous people, uncivilized pagans, etc., and to do basically what you want to non-Christians. So in there, this kind of follows that kind of mindset that there's a hierarchy of human beings, and if you don't fall into what they consider to be a white Christian, if you don't happen to be a Christian, particularly a white Christian, you are by default a lower human being. Therefore, it gives white Christians their right to enter these lands and essentially do what they. This is what I mean. Essentially, do what you want. Take them over, enslave them, etc. So this does kind of highlight. It kind of ties in with the thinking behind a lot of not just the Christian Catholic Church, but Christianity in general. For example, the first slave ship was called Jesus. So this was an ongoing theme within Christianity, not just with the Catholic Church. There was some kind of quote, this is a real quote, white man's burden, where it was essentially upon them, by the grace of God, to go and enslave other human beings and bring them under their control. And this was what white Christians believed this, essentially believed it. And then let's talk about the idea of the curse of Ham that was prevalent in that days too. There was a belief system that prevalent within Christianity during those times where they literally believed that black people were the cursed descendants of Ham. Okay, now
Okay,
that
let,
ran
let
in
me just
that runs in
let me just
tangent. Go
let
ahead.
me just address what you're saying. Otherwise, there's too many points being made. You brought up the Doom the Versus paper ball by Nicholas Five, which let's be honest is the only place that anyone can go to is Nicholas Five
I
because all
put
the
two.
paper. Hold
No,
on,
I
hold
put
on.
two different
Yeah,
popes.
yeah, two different popes, and those two different popes were within the same time around the same time period. And what I've brought up is the all the papal bulls around that time as well. Sorry, just before that pope and right after that pope that condemned slavery and demanded that anyone who has acted in that way to restore those people to those lands all face excommunication. Now, I've mentioned those paper bulls as well. In fact, I've mentioned loads of paper bulls all throughout that period. Now, the and I'm gonna just share this with you guys so you guys can understand where I'm coming from because like as usual, there's a reason why that paper bull was issued. Now, as a Christian, my only disagreement with that particular paper bull is in relation to when he says pagans, when he mentioned the perpetual slavery to all pagans. Just hold on a second for me, please, guys. Uh, dum the verses, dum the verses, dum the verses. Uh, where is it? There we go. All right. This is the paper bull that you're referring to, which is from Nicholas 5. And the other paper bull I think that you brought up was around 14. Uh, this one was in 1452. which is Doom the Verses, where Nicholas V basically issued that. I mentioned that in 14. Hold on a second. Sorry, bro. I'm trying to remember all these dates. It's not easy, bro. It's not easy
No.
remembering all these dates. It was a lot of research, and I'm going to continue to research because I really want to become an expert on this. But it's a lot of research to do. Just hold on a second. So this one was issued, the Doom the Verses, the paper bull that you're talking about, was issued in 1452. This paper bull here was issued in 1435. So 1435, by a different pope, he basically decided to speak against the enslavement of black natives from the Canary Islands. Okay, so that was in 1435, and then we have a pope that comes in 1452. Then he issues this one here, and hold on a second. And this is what we said, that a lot of people issued by Pope Nicholas, 18th of June, 1452. And what he does is, a lot of people don't mention this, and I don't understand why they don't mention this. Um, as we indeed understand from your pious and Christian desire, you intend to subjugate the enemies of Christ, namely the Saracens, and bring them back with a powerful arm to the faith of Christ. Okay, this is and if you read, I'm not going to read the entire thing. I'll leave you guys to do that research. The reason why I just mentioned that, namely that the main reason for that for that for this paper ball here was it was due to the Turks, the Muslims. As you guys know, the crusade started in 1095, and it was a response to Islamic aggression trying to take over. They took over all the Christian lands in north of Africa. They didn't take over the Ethiopians. They took over all the Christian lands in Middle East. They went over to Europe. They took over Portugal and Spain for 800 years. They started attacking Italy. They were stopped in France. So what you have here, so these guys were going around raping, pillaging, killing, murdering. And the Pope finally said enough is enough. Now, in 1452, the Ottoman Empire never stopped. In fact, the Ottoman Empire carried on its war against Christianity. It was only stopped in, I think, in the 1900s, early 1900s, in 1904. That's when they were finally stopped. And then they came to an agreement with the Western powers. But basically, what we are seeing here is aggression from the Ottoman Empire, and the Pope basically saying, namely, now the only part I agree with my brother here is, and I'm with you 100%, is when he said perpetual slavery to pagans. Okay, now Christian kings, okay, at that time, okay, who had their own desires to conquer these lands and do evil things, they would have taken that as an excuse to go around and commit and to enslave everyone else in order to achieve their desires. That's what basically happened. But that paper bull was mainly, if you look at the back story to it, it was mainly to stop Islamic aggression that they've been fighting against since 1095.
So what I want to do, if you could bring my screen up again, because I can't bring my screen up.
Yeah, sure, no worries. Not this one, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm going to just touch on what you said there.
Yeah.
So this is the important part. So yes, you're right to say that initially there was some talk about the Muslims. However, what you didn't mention was the same Pope wrote the bull Romanis Pontifex on January the 5th, 1455. So this is after. To the same Alfonso, as a follow-up to the Dum Diversus, it extended to the Catholic nations of Europe dominion over discovered lands during the Age of Discovery, along with sanctifying the seizure of non-Christian lands. It encouraged the enslavement of native non-Christian people where in Africa and in the New World. So it's not specific to Muslims, The follow-up edict, the follow-up papal bull is not specific to Muslims, and we can see there. It literally says seizure of non-Christian lands. So it didn't matter whether you're Muslim, whether you believe in your own traditional religious practices, whatever. As long as you were in one of these lands, as in Africa or the New World, you were game. It wasn't just about trying to control the Muslims or the Saracens, as the first one clearly did highlight. The follow-up one was pretty much encouraging the enslavement of native non-Christian people throughout the New World and in Africa. So yeah, so in that sense, I don't think we can really point to that follow-up papal bull to say that this was just about controlling Muslims.
I wasn't disagreeing with you. What I was basically saying is I was correcting what it was initially about, and I did say, and if you look back, you can actually listen to it. I did say where the Catholic Church has an issue with is when he said, to conquer other pagan lands and basically subjugate them. So you're absolutely 100% right. But for example, but then again, I'm going to go back to, well, we have in 1535 Sublimis Deus, where basically another papal bull condemns slavery and orders the kings and queens of Europe to go and restore these people to their lands. Now we have to. I just need to say one thing, bro. The relationship between the Catholic Church and the kings of Europe. It wasn't always the kings of Europe listening to what the Catholic Church says. Yes, the Catholic Church could exert great power. And we can see it through all the many papal bulls that I've listed, all the papal bulls within every single century condemning slavery. And yet we still see the kings and queens of Europe still going out and doing what they want to do as far as slavery goes. So just like, for example, today, the Catholic Church is continuously telling the world, stop abortion. Abortion is evil. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Guess what? I bet in about 100 years from now, when people realize that this is a great evil, they're going to turn around and blame the Catholic Church and say, oh, guess what? They didn't do enough. When we are consistently writing paper bulls, documents, doctrines, telling people to stop doing what they're doing, and yet none of that is being adhered to, none of that is being listened to. So this is the same thing. The Catholic Church did not have ultimate power over the kings of Europe, and the kings of Europe, due to greed, due to wanting more power, and so on, due to the lust of power, I would say, they went around and basically they wanted to do what they wanted to do, even though many papal bulls that people never talk about, okay, because the papal bulls that you're missing, that was only within the 1400s, the Roman pontifics that you're talking about, and then the Dom de Verses that you're talking about, that's the only two. Right after that, you see the condemnation of 20 years after, you see the condemnation of what do you call it, of slavery, and you see it subsequently after that at 1639, 1741, every single hundreds of years you see the condemnation up until not even up until even after it went into the 1900s, the condemnation of slavery, and we are still condemning slavery today. But people never want to talk about. They only want to talk about those two paper bulls under this one pope, and this is my only issue with it.
So what I would say to that is, I think there were more than two paper bulls that justify slavery. But if you could bring up my screen again, I just want to show you something in terms of what the Catholic Church have also said about these papal, in their response to slavery, which I think is important to acknowledge as well. So the Catholic Church's response. Okay, now this all this stuff you can look up for yourselves. This is not my assertions. This is things that you can literally look up for yourselves. So the church and the church leaders did not formally condemn slavery until the 17th century. Right? When I mean formally condemn, I'm talking about literally telling people to stop slavery. See, there's a difference between saying to people slavery is wrong and literally saying we need to stop slavery. That's what the Catholic Church did in the 17th century. That's when they did it. And you can look this up. The Vatican acknowledged in a statement from its Culture and Human Development departments that papal documents from the 15th century were used by colonial powers to give legitimacy to their actions, which included slavery. So again, there weren't just two. There were other documents and papal bulls that were used, that were sent out from the Catholic leadership, which now the Vatican is saying, acknowledging, first of all, which is important, because you only acknowledge for wrongdoing, and highlighting that it gave, this is the key part, they understand that it gave legitimacy to their actions, which included slavery. And then obviously on April 18th, 2007, I wanted to touch about the Jesuits as well, because the Jesuits, for those who don't know, and Nelson can brush me up on this, but the Jesuits are a very prominent order within the Catholic establishment, like an order within an order. We're not talking about your average Catholic here. We're talking about people with very esteemed leadership roles within the Catholic Church. They were huge slavers. They had plantations all up in the Caribbean, in Vietnam. They had slave colonies. They sold slaves. They had slaves as I've highlighted, in the Americas. These were men that were literally heavily involved in the slave trade. And again, where was the condemnation from the Catholic Church? Why did the Catholic Church leadership disavow those Jesuits? They were clearly aware of what was going on, because the Jesuits' money flows back into the Vatican. When the Jesuits make money from the slave trade, that money flowed back within to the Vatican. So again, regardless of what they were saying publicly, they were, and this went up until the 1816. This was going up until, okay? The Jesuits were holding slaves up to 1816. You can look this up. So for all those hundreds of years, regardless of what the Catholic Church was saying, they had a group of Catholic men, prominent Catholic leadership within the Jesuits, who were actively involved in the slave trade. They weren't disavowed. The money was flowing back into the Vatican. The Vatican was not saying, hey, we don't want this slave money. They were accepting it. So, I mean, these are facts, what I'm saying here, that people could look up for themselves. And to be honest, that really, to me, that shows that either there was some type of lip service going on, or just complete corruption and lying. Because on the one hand, you can't be out here pretending that you're against slavery, yet one of your biggest orders and the most prominent men within your church are actively selling, using, and buying slaves.
Okay, can I reply to that? My reply to that is very simple. When that line there, you said the churches and church leaders do not condemn slavery until the 17th century. I think I've proven that to be a lie. Hold on a second for me. We've seen on paper bulls, like, hold on a second, guys. Some of the paper bulls that are brought up even before the transatlantic slave trade started. We see, and for example, I'll just read this out again. And no less do we order and command all and each of the faithful of each sex within the space of 15 days of the publication of these letters. So, as you can see, guys, this is the Sicut Dudum, Pope Eugene IV, 1435. So, ninth, Pope Eugene ninth. No, that would be Pope Eugene IV. Sorry, I apologize. 1435. And it said on paragraph 4, and no less do we order and command all and each of the faithful of each sex within the space of 15 days of the publication of these letters in the place where they live, that they restore to their liberty all and each person of either sex who were once residents of said Canary Islands and made captives since the time of their capture, and who have been made subject to slavery. These people are to be totally and perpetually free, and are to be let go without the exaction or reception of money. If this is not done when the 15 days have passed, they incur the sentence of excommunication by the act itself, from which they cannot be absolved, except at the point of death, even by the Holy See. So this is a paper bull written in 1435 against the enslaving of black natives from the Canary Wharf. Now, moving on to the Sublimus Deus on the enslavement and evangelisms of Indians, Paul III, 1537. Okay, this is basically just around the time when it started, the transatlantic slave trade. And he basically goes on to say, um, we who do unworthy exercise on earth the power of our Lord and seek. Hold on a second. I'm trying to get closer to desiring to provide ample remedies. Just hold on a second, guys. Okay, I'm going to read it from here. We who do unworthy exercise on earth the power of our Lord and seek with all our might to bring those sheep of his flock who are outside into the fold committed to our charge. Consider, however, that the Indians are truly men and that they are not only capable of understanding the Catholic faith, but according to our information, they desire exceedingly to receive it, desiring to provide ample remedy for these evils. We define and declare by these our by these our letters, or by any translation thereof signed by any notary, public and sealed with the seal of any ecclesiastical dignitary, to which the same credits shall be given as to the originals, that notwithstanding whatever may have been or may be said to the contrary, the said Indians and all other people who may later be discovered by Christians are by no means to be deprived. This is the point that you guys need to make. The said Indians and all other people who may later be discovered by Christians are by no means to be deprived of their liberty or their possession of their property, even though they be outside the faith of Jesus Christ, and that they may and should freely and legitimately enjoy their liberty and the possession of their property, nor should they be in any way enslaved. Should the contrary happen, it shall be null and have no effect. This is basically, and every single other one that I've mentioned, every single paper bull that I've mentioned that have spoken 1639, 1741. Now, my brother Jean-Michel brought up what they call the Jesuits, good old Jesuits. What my brother probably isn't aware of is that the church did condemn listen, guys, I'm not here saying that Catholic uh, uh, Catholic people didn't involve themselves in slavery. I'm not saying that. Okay, some people abused and went against the rule of the Catholic Church. Okay, they went against the papal bull, and I'm sure loads of people were excommunicated for it. But what I'm basically saying is, I wish I had it in hand right now, but the condemnation of the Jesuits, the Catholic Church did condemn the Jesuits that did not obey the papal bull that was issued by the Catholic Church. Guys, I already gave you every single century, every single century, papal bulls of the Catholic Church condemning slavery. Over up until today, they're still condemning slavery because slavery is still going on today. I've given papal bulls of every single session. Do people go and violate and disobey? They do. They absolutely do. And the Catholic Church has condemned the Jesuits. And guess what? Moreover, the Catholic Church is the only institution willing to pay reparations, even though it has condemned slavery. It's the only institution willing to go out there and still pay for reparations and talk about reparations in a serious manner, unlike the government, and talk about the reparations in a serious manner towards those Catholics and Christians that did not obey the Catholic Church, the Catholic Church ruling on slavery. Every single century, they still do that. So to me, I think the Catholic Church has been way more than fair, considering the fact that they are dealing with human beings that are naturally flawed and will try and take advantage of an opportunity like slavery. Okay, that's my opinion on that, bro. Go ahead. So, Jean-Michel, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry, can you bring up the slide again? Just the last time.
Yeah. Sorry.
What I
Sorry.
want to just say,
Sorry, Jean-Michel. Just one last thing, yeah, before you go on. This is just so that you guys can do your own just quickly consider for yourselves. All right. This is just a quick Google search because I should have had it in hand and I don't. I apologize for that. But just type in a quick. The Catholic Church condemns the Jesuits. Okay, the Catholic Church suppressed the Society of Jesus, also known as the Jesuits, in 1773. Background: the Jesuits were seen as a threat to the establishment of absolute monarchist rule. They were also accused of being politically involved and of persecuting English Catholics by trying to replace them. So the Catholic Church has condemned the Jesuits.
That
The
wasn't for
Catholic
slavery.
Church,
That wasn't for slavery. That was because they
yeah,
were starting to secret societies. That's because there was the
um,
Freemasons. That's because of Freemasons. So the
uh,
Freemasons were born out of the Jesuits. That was nothing to
no, no,
do with. They weren't condemning them for slavery.
no, no. What I was going to say is they were condemned for say. I will find. I will find it. I'll find it. I'll find it.
But then,
Right now, I
not
can't
in
find
that
it. But
quote. Not in 1770,
yeah, yeah.
That's when Adam Weishaupt, who was a Jesuit priest, tried to form the Illuminati, which is a real society. That's the reason why
Mm,
they were suppressed. But just if you bring up my
mm,
my slide, I
yeah,
just want to show, because I think it's important to know that we're not talking about rank and file Catholics. We're talking. I mean, I've already highlighted that you had popes, the heads of
mm,
the Catholic Church, making statements that were then used to justify slavery, or were themselves justifying the enslavement of peoples. This is leadership, and this is kind of in my closing here. So, for my research, there is no doubt that the Catholic Church played a vital and complex role in the history of slavery. I've shown about how, I mean, not just the Catholic Church, Christians in general had a huge role to play in the slave trade. We're talking about financing, blessing ships, owning slaves, uh, having churches on the plantations that were using false Bibles to keep people enslaved. This was the behavior of Catholics and Christians in general. Okay, so for us to sit here and say that they were completely, completely in a like a protest group against slavery, although I'm not denying what Nelson's saying, that there were edicts and papal bulls put forward to condemn it, but there were also papal bulls put forward to, and this is the thing here, we talk about, the famous quote, actions speak louder than words. If they were out there putting out these paper bulls to condemn slavery and putting out paper bulls to support slavery, what were they actually doing? They were engaging in the slave trade. So regardless of what they were saying, there's proof that they were literally involved in the handling of human beings and the enslavement of human beings. So for me, those edicts, and this is another point to make. If Nelson can show me any time when any of these popes, these people that were involved, these Jesuit leaders at the time were excommunicated, I like to see that. From my research, they were not excommunicated because, as I said, the Vatican were receiving monies from the Jesuits, knowing that the Jesuits were involved in slavery. So to the contrary, they weren't excommunicating; they were profiting from the Jesuits' enslavement of peoples. So yeah, so there's no doubt about that. They supported it at some level. They encouraged it with the Papa Bulls I mentioned, and from the behavior that we saw from the Jesuits, and they profited from this transatlantic slave trade, financially profited from it. What is particularly problematic for me is that the justification didn't come from rogue priests and clergymen; it came from the leadership. So I've highlighted at least two popes that were involved in it. The fact that it was being for hundreds of years, you had the Catholic Church and other Christians that were involved at the highest levels of slavery in terms of owning, financing slaves. This came from the leadership. It wasn't rank and file Catholics that were doing it because, as I mentioned, even in America, remember the quote I mentioned about why the Catholic Church were particularly involved in the slave trade more than the Protestants? It's because they had money and they were richer. So the Catholic Church physically were becoming rich of slavery. And this was the leadership. It weren't poor Catholics that were becoming rich. It was rich Catholics that were benefiting from slavery. So we're talking about people in high positions in leadership. So the question is, if the Catholic Church is the representative of Christ's kingdom on earth, why were the Quakers, who were Protestants, I know Nelson mentioned them before, the Quakers were Protestants, they were not Catholics. Okay, that's important to note. Why were the Quakers, the first Christians, and this is a fact that Nelson even mentioned, they were the first Christians to speak up against about one of the most disgusting periods in human history. Before the Catholics did this. Okay, now Nelson's going to go back to those edicts, but when I'm talking about speak up against slavery, I'm talking about action. I'm talking about literally petitioning governments, not just sending out papal bulls and edicts. I'm talking about literally going to government saying, "Hey, this needs to stop protesting, trying to sleeve slaves." In fact, the first white Christian that actually went out there to try and physically sleeve, it was a man called John. Oh, I forgot his name now. A very famous Protestant. He was the first white Christian in America that actually physically tried to free slaves. It weren't the Catholics that were doing this. It was a Protestant man. If I can remember his name, will come back to me. He physically took arms and tried to free slaves. Now, that to me is what I call action. That's not just issuing papal bulls and edicts. This was a Christian, a white Christian, that took it on himself, influenced by the Bible and what he was reading, to follow in the steps of Nat Turner. And so, you know what? I'm going to physically do something about these enslaved Africans. I'm not just going to listen to what the Vatican has to say in Italy. I'm actually going to do something about it. So I'm going to close with that. I'm going to try and find that guy's name. I'll close with that.
Okay. Again, my brother tried to undermine the authority of the papal bulls. Guys,
It
the
was John
papal
Brown.
bulls.
Sorry, guys. It was John Brown was his name. Sorry,
Okay.
John Brown.
The papal bulls. The church did not have its own army. The church could not physically force a European king to do anything. Okay. Yes, the kings and queens of Europe at that time, the kings mainly of Europe, had a lot of power. So they had. So the Pope had a lot of power at that time. Okay. Up until the separation of church and state. So now all the Pope could do is issue papal bulls. That was a big deal to for the Pope for the popes. And if it wasn't for the popes issuing those papal bulls, I don't think slavery would have stopped in the West. I think slavery would have continued. I think the kings of Europe. This is why I started my opening statement by saying that it wasn't because the white people were amazing people and great people why slavery stopped. It had nothing to do with that. It was because of the church and the church teaching against and the church pushing back against slavery through those paper bulls every 100 years, consistently telling them, and I've mentioned it over and over time, the amount of paper bulls up until today, and no one is still listening up until today, and the Catholic Church is still issuing these paper bulls, and it's still saying that the slavery is bigger than ever, and it needs to stop. Okay, so now, and no one is listening. Guess what was going to get the blame in the end? It's the Catholic Church, but it was because the Catholic Church continuously issuing these paper bulls and condemning slavery and going as far as excommunicating Christians that involved themselves in slavery, because they did. And we can always come back to this topic again, and we can always come back and research and go over again and find out who was excommunicated, who wasn't excommunicated, and so on and so forth. We can do that, but it was because of the Catholic Church continuously issuing these paper bulls, which is the Catholic Church's way of saying of basically telling you to obey. Otherwise, you are outside of the fold of the Catholic Church. So it carry a lot of power. So, but it was because of that that the Western world came to the realization that slavery is bad. It's because of Christianity, because of the actions of the popes throughout the year. That the Western world, apart from any other part of the world, okay, no other part of the world has condemned slavery the way I've literally showed that the Catholic Church has done throughout history. All right. And if you don't believe me, you can travel, you can go up to China, you can go up to the Arabic countries, and live there and see what, and you'll understand quickly what I'm talking about. In terms of my brother mentioned the Jesuits. I'm going to look more into the Jesuits, but the incident that my brother was talking about was the Jesuits sold slaves. I think 272 of them sold them in order to and they actually stated they gave the stipulated conditions by which the slaves should have been sold, and guess what, that became a scandal. That became a scandal that even today is talked about. And what my brother hasn't brought up is the fact that the Catholic Church has not only apologized, it is seeking to actually actively pay them reparations for what had happened. Okay, please show me one institution that admits what it's done wrong, and goes as far as saying, okay, we're actually going to pay reparation to these people for the actions that we did. And when you actually look into the history of it, it's not them whipping slaves. It's none of that type of stuff. It's just that the act of selling slaves is really, really bad according to the Catholic faith. Okay. And that is worthy of condemnation. That is worthy of reparations. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. So it was, and this is what I'm saying, Christianity is the moral fabric that has been pulling at the conscience of the Western European people for hundreds of years, for thousands of years, up until the point where slavery now is looked at as an evil thing. But slavery or everywhere else around the world is not looked as an evil thing. It's actually looked as a very normal thing. So yes, it is because of Christianity. It's just the Catholic Church is the biggest Christian religion in the world. It is because of them that slavery came to an end. It is because of their condemnation of it that it came to an end. Not because white people were nice enough to allow you guys to have freedom. These kings were really bad, and I would say really racist. Okay, so that's basically my final saying there. I've got here, what's his name? Pass Fruit Tivik. Who is this? Sorry, bro. I just saw the comments here. The transatlantic slave trade began with the fall of Grenada, of Moorish Al-Andalus, where the doctrine of discovery was a continuation of the Catholic Reconquista, i.e. paper bulls. My brother, you see, what I'm dealing with is a lot of people say things like, the Catholic Church did this, the Catholic Church did that. I need documents, because I've got documents.
He's right on that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I provided documents every year, every hundreds of years, since before the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade started, and after, up until today, of the Catholic Church condemning slavery. Hold on a second. Columbus was a knight of Santiago who followed Moorish. Yeah, the Catholic did bad people within the Catholic did bad things within the Catholic Church. Yes, of course, bro. That's like
Columbus. Who financed Columbus? You know who financed Columbus?
The King of Spain. He's the one who financed Columbus. He went first to the King of Portugal. He said, "No, I'm not financing that." And then he went over to the King of Spain, and he said, "Yeah, definitely, I'm going to do
right."
that."
And I showed you the papal bull that was issued to the King of Spain, justifying that expedition.
Yeah.
I showed you the king. I showed you the Pope that justified that expedition with the King of Spain.
Yes, there's only two paper bulls that one would say is questionable, but those paper bulls were namely towards fighting against Islamic aggression. I agree with you 100%. It did say
No, I disagree with that.
it did say to subjugate pagans. It did say that. I'm not disagreeing with that.
First of all, there were more than even I showed you three, not two. I showed you one, then I showed you a follow-up one. I gave you the name of it. That was two by one Pope. Then I showed you another one by another Pope. So there's three. Those are the ones that I just brought up. So it definitely wasn't more. It was more than two.
No. It's the Roman Pontificate. Yeah. It's the Roman Pontificates. It's the Roman.
Bring it up again.
Bring my slide up and the Doom the verses. That's the only two.
No. Bring it up. Bring it up again.
Spain didn't exist until the 18th. Spain didn't exist until the 18th century. No, my brother. Spain did. Spain existed in the 18th century. How do you think Columbus got to? The Catholic monarchs fought each other as much as the Moors. No, they didn't. That's not true. You're talking about the kings. Uh, yeah, they engage in certain fights, but not as bad as the Muslims. The Moors were really bad. The Moors were just conquered Muslims from the North Africa. That's all they were. Yes, bro. Should I share your screen? Yeah.
Yeah, I think is that me? I don't know if I did that, but so I was going to go
Yeah.
back to that edict again. So if you notice again,
Mm.
so you had the Papal Bull, the Dom de Verse in 18th of June, 1452. The same
Which one?
Pope wrote the bull. This is the
Yeah.
bull
Yeah.
Romanus Pontifex. It's not this one. He wrote that
Yes, I
3
know.
years after. Hold on.
Yeah, that's the two.
So the first one was to Portugal. The
Doom the
second
verses.
one,
Yeah.
the second one, Romanus Pontifex, 3 years after, okay, was a follow-up to Dom de Versus. This was another papal bull. It
Yeah.
extended the Catholic. So this is 2 here, and
Yeah.
then also you got the third one here. So
Which
as
one?
I highlighted, there's 3. This is the third one.
Yes, by the same. But which
No.
pope? Yeah.
No. Look, you got 2 by this person,
Yeah.
2
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
him, right,
Okay.
and then 1 by him. And these are the
Okay.
ones that I just brought up.
No,
So
no.
it was
This is Pope. Hold on. This is Pope Nicholas V. This is the Pope that wrote Dom the
that's
Verses and
5.
Romanus
Yeah, and then
Pontifex.
you got
Pontifex.
Pope Alexander the Sixth,
Yeah,
who
can
wrote
you show me that? Can you show me that? Can you just stop there,
yeah,
bro? The Papal Bull Inter Caetera, issued by Pope Alexander the Sixth on May 4th, 1493, played a central role in the Spanish conquest of the New World. The document supported Spain's strategy to ensure its exclusive right to the lands discovered by Columbus the previous
right.
year, established
That's what their
demarcation.
brother
Yes,
was saying.
absolutely, yes, yes.
Yeah,
That's
so
the two
that's what I
popes.
said. So that's the Pope that influenced the Columbus's so-called land voyage of discovery. So that's the point I was saying. But also, just going back to what you said about
Yeah, that's two popes.
what ended slavery. I disagree that the Catholic Church were, if it wasn't for the Catholic Church issuing these edicts, that slavery would have stopped. So first of all, at the point where slavery ended, they were no longer dealing with kings anymore. They were dealing with governments, first of all. Secondly, the reason why slavery stopped was a number of different reasons. Number one, there were technological advancements, so they didn't need to have to use human beings to do some of the work. That's one of the reasons. A major reason was that slaves were uprising all the time. There were slave uprisings all over America. White people were being massacred and killed. I highlighted 2 major ones, the Nat Turner one and the John Brown one. But there was a group of slaves that freed themselves. Thousands of slaves freed themselves, and they went to a place called the Dismal Swamps, which is in the southern parts of America. They armed themselves and were engaged in guerrilla warfare against plantations who were very poorly equipped. So it was them that was saying to the government, "Look, we can't protect these slaves anymore. We got these these escaped slaves out here organizing and killing us." So it was a mixture of also conflict between the North and the Confederate States and the Northern States. So those were the real reasons why slavery ended. In the UK, it had nothing to do with Catholics. Slavery ending in the UK and the Caribbean had nothing to do with Catholics. And I know that from personal knowledge of how slavery ended in particular islands like the Barbados and Jamaica, nothing to do with Catholic edicts whatsoever. Okay, this
Can I
came
reply
from,
to
from
Can I
it came
reply
from
to
the
that?
it came from the yeah, go ahead.
Can I reply to that? Technology has nothing to do with slavery stopped because we've got more slaves today, and we've never been more technologically advanced for a long time. We've never been more technologically advanced, and yet we've got 73 million abortions being carried out each year. Slavery is essentially a moral issue. It's to do with the rights, or it's to do with recognizing that this person has the right to live a free life, has the right to live with liberty, has a conscience. It has nothing to do with technology. It has nothing to do with government. It's primarily a moral issue. If someone looking at another person as someone who deserves dignity, deserves the right to live, the right to liberty, that's a moral issue that has nothing to do with technology, that has nothing to do with governments. Governments can come and change, as we can, as we know. If we guys, you can Google this yourselves. Um, do we have more slaves today? Yes, we do. We do, literally. And are we more technologically advanced than we were? Yeah, yes, we are. So yes, it was the paper bulls, it was the pressure from the Catholic Church over the centuries that literally that allowed the West to develop this anti-slavery mindset. This is why we see only in the West, slavery being combated, slavery, racism being combated, slavery being combated, being fought against, being rebuked, and so on. That's why we don't see it anywhere else, and no one else talks about it anywhere else because they know better not to talk about it anywhere else. Because if you go out there and you try to drop that rhetoric to them, you will end up somewhere where you don't want to end up. That's the truth. And so just to conclude, it is a moral issue why slavery got stopped. It has nothing to do with technology.
So Nelson's wrong there, because what were slaves do? What was the number one thing that slaves were doing on the plantation, especially in America? They were picking cotton. Okay, the invention of the cotton gin took away the need. Slaves were stripping the cotton of their seeds. That's what slaves were doing, picking and stripping the cotton of their seeds. When the introduction of the cotton gin, there was no need for human beings, and that's the main reason why slaves were. This is the main function of slaves in the Americas. That's why the term cotton picking comes from. Because that was the main. This is the phrase cotton picking N-word. Okay, that's where it comes from. Why were they cotton picking N-words? Because that's what they were doing. The majority of slaves were picking cotton. So a black man, by the way, created the cotton gin. That's interesting, ironic there. But that was the reason why a lot of slaves, they didn't need slaves in that particular industry anymore, the main industry, because of the cotton gin. So yes, I'm not disputing the fact that there was some moral reasons why slavery ended. I'm not disputing that, because as I said, you had the Protestant Quaker movement who were out there, advocating for the freedom of slaves. But the Catholic Protestant Quaker movement was doing that.
No, the Quaker movement.
As I highlighted, before the Catholics were doing anything of any note when it came to ending slavery, the Quakers were the ones that, that's why the Quakers are known to this day for being the ones that led the abolition movement. It wasn't the Catholics, the Protestant Quakers.
The Quakers just picked up from where the Catholics were already fighting against. Hold on, I've got this pass. He must be a Muslim because he's out here just spewing lies. The Roman Empire continued with Christendom.
Let's bring him on. Pass fruit to Vic.
Come on. Yeah.
I'm throat is parched. Come on.
Let me get the link out there for you guys. If you want to come on, guys. Yeah, and see if you're really about this life. I doubt that very much. Most of you are not. Here's the link, guys. You can come on and share your views. Prince. Here's the link as well. Because listen, if anyone comes on, half an hour tops, guys. And because we're pretty much done with the debate, really and truly. But the Roman Empire continued with Christendom. That's just not true. East and West, no. The Roman Empire fell, and Christianity basically the Roman Empire got taken over by barbarians and all types of other groups when it fell.
Controlled the states under the Pope, and that did end.
Yeah, Charlemagne was the first, right? Wait, no, Charlemagne was a Catholic king and under an imperial deity form of government, which is based off the Islamic Caliphate. What? Islamic Caliphate?
Come on and explain what he means by the First Reich. I would like to see what he means by the First Reich.
Yeah, I've sent the link. The link
come
is
on?
there, guys.
Look, you need to come on.
Yeah, because all of this is inaccurate. It's not true. Look, guys, that's the link there. It's in the chat. You guys can just press the link and come on and offer your views. I dare any one of you to do that. I doubt you'll be able to. You know, my brother John Michel
The
jumped in the ring. He has
Merovingians,
no issues. Uh,
Weren't the Merovingians the ones that believe that they got Jesus' blood in them?
yeah, yeah. I mean, these guys are getting into all types of conspiracy theories, which is just BS. It's not historical at all. You know, they've been watching to what's that movie called, bro? Uh,
Don't say it. Dan Brown.
it's got Neo on it. It's got it's got Neo on it. It's got
Matrix.
Neo on it. Matrix, the Matrix, the Merovingians. I think is that their name? Yeah.
But
Um,
you did make a good point that I want to talk about, and maybe this could be a discussion for another day.
yeah, absolutely.
We've been talking about Christianity and slavery, but
Mm.
you have highlighted quite rightly that in some of these Muslim worlds, slavery has been going continuous.
It
I mean, I
hasn't
tell you,
stopped.
if we were to talk about the lifeline of slavery, Christian nations ain't got nothing on these Muslim nations. I mean, they've been
Nothing.
before the slave trade, they were dealing in slaves, and after the slave trade, they were still involved in slavery. So, I mean, that's another interesting discussion that we could look at because
Yeah.
it's Islam's role in the slave trade. I mean, it's pretty extensive and it's longer.
Yeah, bro, it's much longer. It's still legal today. Look, you sound
Well,
stupid,
bro,
Octavio.
well, if he sounds stupid, why don't you come on and challenge him instead of just type it in the chat box? That sounds cowardly to me.
Yeah, yeah, you sound like a coward. If I sound stupid, you sound like a coward. But the thing is, look, guys. The slave trade is it's not only allowed in Islam as a religion itself. It's that's the reason why it has survived till this day. And the only reason why in the 1976 Saudi Arabia was told it was told to make slavery legal, even though most of the slavery today comes from Islamic countries. So it was told to stop slavery because the West pointed their guns at them and told them, if you don't stop, there's going to be consequences. That's the only reason why they made it illegal. So what has happened? It has gone underground. Most of the slave trade today happens in those countries. No one likes to talk about it. You know, everyone likes to talk about the transatlantic slave trade, and I think the transatlantic slave trade has been under a lot of scrutiny. Everyone always mentions the transatlantic slave trade. That's the go-to. Whenever we're talking about slavery, guys, that's the go-to. We always go to transatlantic, but no one else dares to talk about the slavery that's still going on in Islamic country. No one else condemns it. Why is that? And this is what this is. I find that absolutely hypocritical. I find that ridiculous. That one is open to scrutiny, but the other one is never ever mentioned. This is the reason why I have no sympathy for anyone that brings the slavery argument, because we've got more slaves today than we've ever had. And I don't see no one speaking up against it. I don't see no marches. I don't see no one going up there. I don't see no one putting pressure on the government here to stop the slavery in those countries. I don't see any of that. What I see is everyone, you know what? When we're talking about slavery, let's go back to the transatlantic slave trade. And I'll be honest with you, of course, by all means, slavery is evil, regardless of what where it's performed at, or where it exists. But the fact that it's never spoken about, in the it's that's worries. That's worrying, bro. Um,
I agree. I agree. 100%.
Slave is derived from Slav. He's not going to join. He's not going to join. I've given him multiple. Britain instituted the House of Sword after defeating the Ottomans. Bro, you need to study the history of the Ottoman Empire. It was quite evil. Yeah, they had 1904. That's when the Ottoman Empire fell, and then after that, they had to basically form an alliance with the West. Otherwise, because they were fearing destruction. So um, but yeah, he's not going to join it. He's not going to join. He's not going to join. Um, but yeah, guys, listen. We gave you guys a chance, man. Gave you guys a chance. But it's been a great debate. I hope people have learned
No,
from
I
this.
learned a lot. I learned. I see it as a when you debate with your equal, you're gonna learn something. You know,
There you go. Me too. So
so
likewise.
yeah, I learned something. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about history here. We're not. I'm
Yeah.
not making there's no kind of I mean, and I made the point. I don't know if you noticed that, though, so you didn't notice it. But actually, did I? Did I? I may have put it on the slides, but yeah, I did know. I did make the point of saying that the Catholic Church, they said they were wrong. They said they were wrong for the papal bulls that they did use. They said they came out and said, "Hey, that was wrong." They said the Jesuits, "Hey, that was wrong." And as you said, there's reparations for those families. By the way, they're pushing for reparations. So those, I made a point of putting those two things in there, not for no reason. I was important that I wrapped it up by saying, "Hey, yes, I'm highlighting the involvement, but I'm also going to highlight the fact that they did, in modern times, acknowledge the wrongdoing, and in some places, try to offer reparations." Now, I can respect that. It's if they didn't say anything, if they tried to justify it, that would be a completely different story. But when you have people that come forward and say, "Hey, we were wrong. Some of our members were wrong. Some of our leadership were wrong. And we take accountability for it. We apologize. And then going forward, we're going to try and actually, the descendants of those people that were there, we're going to sort them out financially." You're going to respect that.
Yeah, absolutely, because none of us are perfect. And this is what I'm trying to say. You see, I don't see no other organization. I don't see no other institution doing the same thing. I don't. Black people are still out here literally fighting against the government for reparations. They still say you need to give us some sort of reparations. And yet the Catholic Church were in a heartbeat. They came to them and they said, yes, we agree with you for the wrongs that we've done. We are willing to start the process of the proceedings of giving you guys reparation. To me, that speaks volume about that institution, rather than today we are still going back and forth for the government whether black people should have reparations or shouldn't have reparations. Whether they should. I remember you having that debate. I don't know if you remember, Jean-Michel. you had that debate. It was in regards to reparations.
That wasn't a debate with the equal, unfortunately.
Yeah. Come on, bro. Man. But yeah, you made a good point. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm basically saying is, guys, look, listen, at the end of the day, you're talking about any institution that takes accountability for the wrongs that it does, to me, is an institution worthy of following, not one that doesn't take accountability, no one is allowed to speak about, no one is allowed to criticize, no one is allowed to what and whatnot. To me, I don't agree with that. But yeah, guys, looks like what's his name? Pass Fruit Vit.
No, I really want to see a part 2 to this, and I want to see a part 2 with Islam. I'm not the best person to talk on that, but Nelson, I think it's important that you do exactly the same heading. One thing I don't like is this double standards that you can't say about what. No, this is a channel for that.
Yes.
Equal opportunities.
Equal opportunities, baby.
I want to see the title, Islam, and how did I title mine? How did I start mine off? What was the beginning slide again? Let me go back to
hold on. Let's see.
Yes, slavery and the Catholic Church. I want to see slavery and Islam.
Yes, okay,
I want to see slavery and Islam. And you have a brother here I saw the other day. He's a Muslim, a scholar. Well, I don't know if he's a scholar, but he seemed quite knowledgeable. 2 you have recently who've been contributing to the channel. Yeah. One of those 2 guys need to take on this challenge. Okay.
Shouts to Dawood and Hassan.
Slavery and Islam.
Yeah.
Nelson would be in my seat. This I think would be in my seat this time. And you'll be defending. But this is the effort we need to do. And I think it's important because it's not fair to kind of feel there's no topic of ground and there's no religion that can't be scrutinized. I'm sorry.
But you see that's even a problem. Even having to say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because that I'm sorry, but that we need to look at slavery is evil. Everyone can attest to that. Everyone can agree to that. So we need to look into why do we have more slaves today? What's going on? We looked at the Catholic religion. Let's look at Islam. Let's look at communism. Let's look at communist countries. Let's look at all everywhere else in the world. Let's look at nothing should be off limit. None of these topics should be off limits. And I think
What you don't want is for me to go away and to present. That's what you don't want. So I'm putting it out there. It's a certain amount of time I'll be waiting, but at some point I'm going to come back to Nelson and say, "Hey, Nelson, I want to talk about the
yes,
history of Islam and slavery, and I will pull out this research. I will take time out. So I'm giving people the opportunity to kind of do that first, because I may get things wrong or not understand. But I will, because I think it's so important to do it. I will do it. We will do it. Nelson and I will do it. Just putting it out
yep.
there.
Trust
Nelson,
me.
Nelson wants to do it.
I want to do it, bro. That's straight up and down. I want to do it. I really want to do it. And guys, I'm Catholic. Catholics are criticized a lot. Okay, just gonna end with this. But Catholics are criticized a lot. And guess what? I'm willing to put my own faith, on the line right here. I'm willing to do all of that. You know what I mean? I'm willing to be scrutinized, my faith to be scrutinized and questioned and so on and so forth. I'm willing to do that. And I think everyone should be able to do that. If your faith is the truth and you truly believe in that, or it doesn't even just mean religion, it can be your ideology, whatever it is that you believe in. If it's indeed the truth, then you should be able to jump in and have it scrutinized. If that's really the truth, Nelson needs to go to school and read a book. I know, bro. I know. I know. I think I sent the link, didn't I? Yeah, I sent the link. Look, just in the interest of fairness, we're just gonna send it one more time. Let's see if the brother jumps in. Let's see if the jump. There we go. Look at that. Look at that. Just in the interest of fairness, bro. Before we finish, just in the interest of fairness, just to say, I tried. I tried. If I need to go back to school, I think we all should be going back to school. We should all be learning and
Can I
reading
just
more.
say this? Can I just say this? And this is just a pet. This a man to man talk here now. I understand people like to have fun, but guys, as men, as this is a channel for men, and as men, we don't really appreciate or respect trolls. People. I mean, if you have something to say as men, you come up on a platform. You ever got to show your face? You can hide your. You can put the stop cam thing on and talk and debate. We can't respect people that come on here that just type and don't. I understand that happens in other. I know this is the culture of YouTube and the internet. That's the culture now to just kind of type stuff. And we're not trying to emasculate when we say this, but there's no reason why you can't come up on the live, hide your face, and talk and debate and reason with us. That's what I'm going to say on that.
Look, guys, I don't know everything, and I don't go around saying that I do. What I'm doing is I'm engaging with what I'm finding out,
And we won't
and
disrespect you. We wouldn't disrespect you for coming up. We respect it.
no, yeah, we're actually
There'll
very
be no
respectful.
disrespect. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
there'll be no trolling, name calling, none of that. We don't do that here.
yeah. Again, the brother said, I said it and you laughed without looking at the info I shared. Brother, I'm in the live right now, and if I laughed, it's because I probably didn't. I don't think it's true. But if you want to prove me wrong, I mean, you can always jump in. I don't, I don't consider it to be true, brother. I'm sorry to say it, But if you want to prove me wrong, this is what I'm trying to say. If you want to prove me wrong, come in. And I'm not gonna disrespect you. I'm actually a very respectful person. And I think that's a masculine trait, guys. Okay. Being respectful is a masculine trait. All right. Being disrespectful is not a masculine trait. We need to start changing the narrative. All right. Okay. And when I laughed, I wasn't trying to insult you, but if you felt insulted, get over it. All right. I gave you the chance of coming on. and then we can we can argue about it. You know, at least I gave you the chance. You know, but get over it, bro. We meant. You know, this is how we talk. This is how we communicate. You know, but hold on a second. What else this is? I don't share misinformation or disinformation. Then come in and correct me. You know, that's all I gotta say, man. Let me just put that one there. I mean, there you go. There you go. There's the link. You know, once again. But I don't think
You
you
won't
will.
come on. You
I
won't
don't
come
think
on, bro. This has
you
been
won't
a
come on.
great. This has been a great
Indeed.
opportunity for me. This is a great debate. I really enjoyed it. It was a good
Yep.
respect as always, and yeah, man, this is really good. I haven't really got any last thoughts to be honest. This is a good experience, and I like the fact that it made me go and you know take some time out and actually do a bit of research, and it's good for the brain, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I have to thank you as well, bro, because it made me do some digging. It made me do some learning, and I think it's important for people to continue to learn, and where we went wrong to correct ourselves, because we're not always going to get things right. And I respect the person that gets it wrong but comes back and says, you know what, I actually did some more research and you're actually right about that. I actually respect that because we should all be trying to learn more and more and more and more and more. And that's what these debates really provoke. They provoke you to go out and learn more. You know, which we should all be doing. Because since everyone has an opinion, since since everyone is has social media and has an opinion, we should really be educate. We should be prioritizing educating ourselves more than engaging with social media, so that we actually passing on the correct information and not the wrong information. And that's what these debates basically do. So yeah, bro, everything that you mentioned, every objection that you had, uh, what's going to happen is as a result of what you said, I'm going to go out and look it up and learn more, and then come back again. You see what I'm saying?
Same here.
But in the end, what we have is the process of learning. That's what we have. You know, that's really in the end when you look at it. But shout outs to Paz Fruit Vit, whoever he is. Shout outs to you for sharing your views, even though you didn't jump on. Shouts to Jean-Michel. Shouts to everyone that watched the debate. We're going to be coming back and have these provocative debates more often. So, guys, stay tuned. All right, Jean-Michel. See you next time, brother. Yeah.
Peace,
Peace.
everyone.